Mr. Sultan showed you during his cross-examination. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And, sir, when was the first time you saw that particular photograph, exhibit number 322?
Earlier today.
When Mr. Sultan showed it to you while you were testifying on cross-examination?
Yes, that's correct.
You never saw it previously, correct?
No.
And when you met with Mr. Rankin and Mr. Sultan and Mr. Fee, did they show you a photograph that looked anything like that?
No.
And nonetheless, when you were shown it, your first response was, this is a black and white photo of something that doesn't appear the same in color. Is that correct?
Yes, well, the question was, are these black polymer pistols? Your Honor.
Well, so you recall the question that Mr. Sultan asked you?
Yes.
Okay, and your response to the question was what, sir?
That this being a black and white photo, that all the pistols, in fact, would be black. And if I saw the photo in color, I could better ascertain if all the pistols were black. And in fact, just by judging by some of the makes and models that are depicted in this display, some of them might not be black.
And how do you know that?
Well, for instance, this pistol here, third row down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That pistol right there is a Browning high power.
And if I could just take this from you, I'll put it on the model. Is that adequate for you to continue with your description?
Yes, thank you. So, if I could use the stylus, actually. So, this pistol...
You have to put it on the tablet, actually.
This pistol right here is a Browning high power, 9mm semi-automatic handgun. That typically comes in a high gloss blued finish, and it's an all steel gun, so it would either be black or polymer. In addition, this pistol down here is a Colt 1911 pattern pistol. Again, would be an all steel pistol, not polymer, and typically are a high polished blue. So there are at least 2 firearms here that are, not polymer and not necessarily black. This pistol here is most likely a 6-hour P224 pistol, and again, that is a aluminum and steel pistol, not polymer. They do tend to be blue-black in color. So there's several firearms in this display that are neither polymer nor all black, necessarily.
Now, you described a 1911, correct, M1911?
Yes.
And in fact, yesterday when Mr. Sultan was asking you about Ithaca Arms, you indicated they made shotguns and a version of the 1911, correct?
Yes, well, during the World War II years, Ithaca Gun Company produced a great many 1911 pistols for the U.S. military, and those are of very high quality. The finish on those generally tends to be a gray-green parkerizing. Later, Ithaca got primarily into the shotgun manufacturing business, and in the last couple of years, they have produced a 1911 pattern pistol, which is, all steel and blue.
Now, yesterday you described that the Glock operated by means of a firing pin. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the fact that a Glock uses a firing pin make a particular sort of visual at the end of the gun.
Yes.
And could you describe that for us, please?
Certainly. Our pistols are classified by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms as being double-action only pistols. They utilize an internal firing pin, and if one could envision a archer holding a bow with an arrow at full draw, the firing pin is essentially under spring tension, and when it's released, the firing pin moves forward, hits the cartridge primer, and detonates the round of ammunition, sending the bullet down the bore. So it has no external hammer, if you will. It's got an internal striker. However, the pistols that I've pointed out, such as the SIG 224, the Browning High Power, and the 1911 Pattern pistol, all have external hammers, which you can see at the rear of the pistol.
And can you just use the stylus and point that out for us, please?
Yes, I'm gonna clear this out here. So if you notice right here, there is a hammer on the high power. Right here on the back of the 224, there's a hammer. It's actually a bob hammer, but you can see the hammer strut right there. And then down here on the 1911, you can again see an external hammer. And in those instances, the hammer has to be cocked, and when the trigger is pulled, the hammer falls forward, then strikes a firing pin, which then in turn detonates the primer on the cartridge. So they're distinctly different methods of operation.
Now, when Mr. Sultan was asking you yesterday about other Glock 45 models, do you recall that?
Yes.
And you first described, if you could just, the frame size of the Glock 21 is what?
The company considers that to be the large frame pistol.
And Mr. Sultan asked you about whether or not there are other large frame 45 calibers produced by Glock, is that correct?
Yes.
And what's the, are there other large frame 45 caliber pistols produced by Glock?
Sure. There's the G41 and the G30.
And insofar as the G41, could you describe that to us, please?
The frame is identical in size to the exemplar pistol, the G21.
Okay. Again, I'm just showing you JJ for identification.
And the weapon is clear and safe. So on the G41, the frame size is identical, however, the slide is much longer and the barrel is much longer. This is a 4.6-inch barrel. The G41 has got a 5.3-inch barrel. In addition, on the 41, because the slide is longer, they've actually made it slimmer than the slide here on the 21, because all things being equal, we needed it to weigh about the same, and because we made it longer, we had to make it skinnier.
And in relationship to the size of the G21, could you just show us how much longer that is, please?
Oh, the barrel comes out to about there.
And how long has the Glock 41 been in production?
Only since January of 2014.
And so it's fair to say that as regards the Glock 41, it couldn't have been in existence in June of 2013, correct?
No, I first saw a pre-production sample of that pistol in late August 2013.
Now, you also indicated there's another full-size Glock chambered in 45 caliber, is that correct?
Yes.
And could you describe that for us, please?
Sure, that's the G30, either in the SF version or the Gen 4 version. And essentially what that pistol would do is it's this same frame, however, the barrel is shorter by about a ½ inch, and the butt of the gun is shorter by about a ½ inch, such that the magazine capacity of the 30 is reduced to a 10-round flush-fit magazine. So the magazine, the corresponding magazine is shorter as well.
And so just for the purposes of dimensions, could you just sort of show us how much smaller the...
Sure, it'd be about that much shorter in the slide in the barrel, and it'd be about that much shorter in the butt.
And in regards to both the 41 and the 30, did you describe that or exhibit those and explain the production of those when you met with Mr. Rankin, Mr. Sultan, and Mr. Fee?
I had those pistols with me, yes.
Okay, did they ask you any questions about them?
I don't recall.
Now, was that particular smaller version of the G21 in existence in June of 2013?
Yes.
Now, you indicated that that's the only other large frame 45 caliber that was in existence in June of 2013, correct? Chambered in 45 caliber of Glock.
Yes, there are other 45 caliber Glocks, but they are smaller yet again.
And could you just those were the other models that Mr. Sultan was asking you about, correct?
Yes.
And could you just sort of demonstrate again, using our exemplar Glock, sort of how much smaller those are, please?
Well, the smallest one is the G36, and it's unique to the product line in that it's the only single column magazine 45 AC pistol that we make. And if you can see the magazine well here and the grip frame, that particular pistol is narrower through here by about a third, because the magazine, rather than being that fat double stack magazine, is a single column magazine holding only 6 rounds as opposed to 13. So it's very much narrower through the frame. And the slide on a 36 is correspondingly narrower, again, by about a quarter to a third of this particular frame, or excuse me, slide.
So considerably smaller than that particular weapon, correct?
Oh, yes.
Now, Mr. Sultan was asking you about experience in the firearms industry, and then you also went on to describe at least some of your experience in the New Hampshire State Police with firearms. Could you tell us, please, the types of things that you've been exposed to in regards to firearms over the years?
As I mentioned previously, I was certified by New Hampshire Police Standards and Training as an instructor in firearms to police officers for the rifle, the shotgun, and the semi-automatic handgun. I've attended the armorer's courses for the Sig Sauer line of handguns 3 times, the armorer's course for the Smith & Wesson line of handguns 2 times. I would point out, however, that neither one of those certifications is currently valid. I have also attended the Glock Armorer's School, and that is in fact valid. The most recent continuing education that I did regarding firearms was in June of 2014. I attended and completed the FBI's Pistol Instructor School. When I was in the New Hampshire State Police, I was assigned to Troop G, the motor carrier unit, and in that unit, one of my duties and responsibilities was to work on and maintain the other troopers in my troops' sidearms, as well as their shotguns. In addition to that, I was one of the firearms instructors for the New Hampshire State Police.
And what does a firearms instructor do?
That is a person who teaches someone else how to properly use a firearm.
And does that include going to the range?
Yes, absolutely.
And about how many times would you say you've gone to the range and fired weapons?
Hundreds, if not thousands.
And how many times would you say you've been around other people who are also doing it?
Hundreds, if not thousands.
Now, I'm going to show you exhibit number 319, if you wouldn't mind just clearing the screen there. And this was an exhibit that you looked at and identified yesterday, is that correct?
Yes.
And yesterday you identified that as being a firearm, is that true?
Yes.
Now, is that firearm, I believe you described it yesterday, being held by the grip and the butt end of the gun?
Yeah, in that particular photo, the gun is being held by the butt.
And do you see any orange dots or muzzle or anything like that on that particular firearm?
No, I do not.
Now, I'm going to show you exhibit 321A. You see that?
Yes, I do, sir.
And in that particular exhibit, could you describe to us, I think you indicated yesterday that you see a firearm there, is that correct?
Yes.
And could you tell us how that particular firearm is being held?
That's being held in a reverse grip, sort of by the muzzle, and it's being transferred from side to side.
Side to side?
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
It's fair to say you wouldn't do that, right?
No.
Based on your experience and your training, is that correct?
Yes, because again, you wind up with firearm pointed at yourself.
Now, I think in response to questions from Mr. Sultan, you indicated you're not a ballistician, correct?
No.
You're sort of in the business not of analyzing the evidence or shells or projectiles after they're fired, correct?
Correct.
That's not your business.
That is not my business.
Your business is the guns themselves, is that
Yes.
correct? And you were asked about, does Glock maintain records? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And could you describe to us, please, the types of records that Glock maintains?
Certainly. When a pistol is produced, it is given a unique serial number. That unique serial number is recorded in the company's records, and the firearm is then shipped to in most instances, a distributor. The distributor then maintains a record of what end user they shipped the pistol to, as to whether it would be a retail gun shop, a law enforcement agency, or a private person. There are some law enforcement orders of enough quantity that they are drop shipped directly from Glock to the agency, but in that instance, we would have a record that would reflect X number of pistols being shipped from Glock to XYZ Police Department. But typically, they go through a distributor.
Now, if I may approach. You've indicated that there's a unique identifier, correct?
Yes.
And I'm just again showing you JJ for identification. Do you see that?
Yes.
And could you tell us, does the unique identifier appear on JJ for identification?
Yes, it actually appears in 3 places.
And if you could show that to us, please.
Sure. This bright metal plate here is the serial number plate, and that is the legally proper marking of the firearm, because in the United States we consider the lower half, the frame, to be the firearm. This is where the serial number needs to be. In addition, we serial number the slide on our pistol, and we also serial number the barrel on our pistol. So all 3 serial numbers are there, they match, but the only one that's actually legally required is the one that's on the frame of the pistol, that silver plate.
Now, that number, is that the only record that Glock maintains?
Correct.
And so when Mr. Sultan is asking you about test firing, do you maintain the ballistic evidence and match it to a serial number in the Glock records?
No.
And so in order to trace a firearm, if you know, do you have to have the firearm with the serial number to get back to the Glock records?
Correct.
You can't do it, can you, by finding projectiles that have been fired or shell casings that have been ejected?
No, that in and of itself would not be enough.
Now, Mr. Sultan asked you about the marking barrel, right? And whether or not that's a response to problems with polygonal barrels not marking the projectiles, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are there ways that a polygonal barrel can end up imparting markings on a projectile, if you know, please?
Yes.
And can you describe that for us?
The 2 ways that I could think of off the top of my head is, number 1, if someone were to shoot a great deal of what's known as corrosive ammunition and did not clean the pistol, the bore of the pistol properly, and let those corrosive particles sit in the bore, it would actually damage the bore of the pistol and etch it. The second way is if somebody was cleaning the bore of the pistol or the barrel of the pistol and they cleaned it improperly, especially if they were using a stainless steel or steel cleaning rod, and they rubbed that rod vigorously up and down the bore of the barrel and made contact with it, they could damage the bore that way such that it would leave a mark. And actually a third way is if they damaged the muzzle of the gun, the part where we call the crown, which is the last part where the bullet touches the rifling before it leaves the gun. If you were to damage the crown of the bullet, or excuse me, the crown of the barrel, that could also impart a mark to the bullet and greatly affect accuracy.
And is Glock able to keep any records of that?
No.
And in fact, insofar as any markings imparted on any part of a cartridge, does Glock keep, maintain, have access to, or have any ability to retrieve records?
No.
Now, Mr. Sultan showed you this Glock box.
Yes.
Marked NN for identification. You recognize that?
I do.
And could you take that little pouch or envelope with the 2 cartridge casings out, please?
Yes.
Could you take a look at those 2 cartridge casings, please?
Yes.
And could you tell us what is the caliber of those 2 cartridge casings?
9mm Luger, also
And-
referred to as 9mm Parabellum.
Fair to say those 2 cartridge casings couldn't have been fired by a .45 caliber, correct?
No.
Now, those 2 cartridge casings, is that what is sent by Glock after the weapon is fired?
Correct.
And does Glock send any of that to law enforcement for the purposes of registering any marks on those casings with law enforcement?
No.
Those actually go to the first person who buys the Glock, is that correct?
That is correct.
And just like they're here in an empty box, you don't know what anybody does with them after they receive them, isn't that true?
That is true.
And in fact, would you say that the vast majority of jurisdictions in the United States have no requirement for anybody to turn those over to law enforcement?
That's correct. I think there's only 3 or 4 states that require a registration of these.
And so the other 46
Something.
or 47 states, that just goes to whomever gets the Glock inside of the box, correct?
Correct, and they're free to do whatever they want with it.
And so there's no record at all maintained of any markings imparted on the shell casings that are provided with the box to the first person that buys that.
Right.
Now, I can just show you some video. Again, sir, we're just now looking down on the bottom there on the green bar, 3:27:40 in the morning on June 17th, plus 2 minutes and 46 seconds is real time. Now, if we could just pause it there, please. Just back it up just a little bit. Go ahead. Now, do you see, if you could there, what is Mr. Hernandez doing, please?
Walking from the dining area into the living room area.
And do you see what he's doing with his right arm?
Yes.
Can you describe what you see him doing with his right arm?
Oral.
Can you describe what he's doing?
His right arm is bent upwards and towards his left shoulder.
And he's looking back now. The first person you see was...
Objection sustained,
Okay.
form of the
Go ahead.
question.
And his head is turned to the left as well.
Let's go. You see his hand there
Yes.
as it was coming down? Can you describe that for us?
In his left hand.
No, I'm sorry, his right hand.
Right
As it
hand.
was coming down.
Objection sustained.
Go ahead. Now, if we could just pause it there, please. Would you agree with me, sir, that person in the foreground with the black hooded sweatshirt is in front of Mr. Hernandez, correct, in the white sweatshirt?
Yes.
And given their arrangements, would you agree with me, sir, Mr. Hernandez is actually considerably bigger than the person in the black sweatshirt?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, there's size differential.
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, can you tell who's bigger?
Objection.
Sustained.
Just in the video, sir, you see the two of them?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, we can go frame by frame. Okay, you can stop it. In the left hand of the person in the black sweatshirt, the person that Mr. Sultan was pointing out to you, do you see that object there?
I do.
And could you describe that for us, please?
It's a black object. I can't tell exactly what it is.
Okay. And its size or shape? As best you can tell, can you see what shape it is?
Yeah, it appears basically rectangular.
Would you see anything protruding in any way from either side of that rectangular object?
Objection.
Sustained.
If I could, the place on the screen, if I could, on the overhead viewer. Now, would you agree with me, sir, in this exhibit, 318D, Mr. Hernandez is considerably further back away from the camera than we just observed in the video?
Yes.
Okay. And with respect to the object that you described yesterday in Mr. Hernandez's hand, do you see any similarities between that and what you just saw in the hand of the man on the video in the black hooded sweatshirt?
No.
Now, we can go back to the video, please. You saw the direction that man was moving with the black hooded sweatshirt, correct?
Yes.
And we're going to go to the very next frames, one by one. It's now 3:28:07 system time, 3:28:16 system time, add 2:46. We're going to go frame by frame, please. Now, if we can stop here, sir. You see the man now in the black-headed hooded sweatshirt in the frame of the video.
Yes.
And can you see anything in between his hands?
Yes, small black object.
Okay. Can you see anything protruding from his hands in any directions?
No.
Objection sustained. Yes, that's what it's stricken.
I'm going to show you 317A on the video on it. You see any similarities between what we just saw in the man with the black sweatshirt's hand and that frame with this exhibit?
No.
Now, you see now Mr. Hernandez going up the stairs, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's now 3:29:52 on the system time, plus 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Now, Mr. Sultan asked you a number of questions about a rectangular object that was glowing, correct?
Yes.
Do you see something on top of the rectangular object in the video?
There is a white glowing background to it.
And on top of that, do you see anything?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay, we'll take it frame by frame here, please. Go ahead. Now, if you just back it up one, please. You see the door?
The
The
basement
door,
the front
that
door?
white door in the center right of the screen. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. Can you make note of the door above the doorknob? Do you see any black marks anywhere on the door.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
What do you notice about the door?
Objection.
Objection sustained. Let me see, counsel.
If we could just go frame by frame, please.
That's okay.
Now, if we could stop that, please. I may approach the witness,
You may.
please. Your Honor.
You may.
approach the witness? Show you two sets of photographs and ask you now, just based on the video that we just watched in those two segments, do you recognize those photographs?
Yes. And this one as well.
I'd offer these as the next exhibit.
Well, are these in from yesterday? I just,
No, these are the ones I showed you.
okay, these are new?
These are the ones I showed you.
They're new.
Yes.
Objection.
You're marked as the next exhibit.
through D and 341.
Thank you. We gotta have one moment, please. Showing you now, it's been marked in 348. You see that?
Yes, I do, sir.
Did Mr. Sultan show you that photograph?
I believe so, yes.
That particular photograph?
I recall seeing some similar photographs. I don't know if it was this photograph.
Okay, well, let's take a look. me, Your Honor.
Me.
Showing you Exhibit 334 that Mr. Sultan showed you before. Is it in there?
It's not in this package.
335.
Not in that packet.
336.
No.
337.
No.
338.
No, I'm sorry, it's not in these stills.
Okay. Same thing for 340B, is that correct?
Correct.
340C, is that correct?
Yes.
340D, is that correct?
Yes.
And that exhibit, 341. Mr. Sultan show you that photograph.
I'm not sure, I don't believe so.
Exhibit 339. Thank you.
No.
It's not in there, right?
No, it isn't.
In fact, if you take the last photo out of Exhibit 339, it's this one, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Did you talk to the prosecutors or anyone else about your testimony over the lunch break?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, is it your testimony on redirect that my colleagues and I failed to show up for a scheduled meeting with you, sir? Is that your testimony?
I was
Yes or
told-
no?
Yes.
Okay. When was that?
I don't recall the specific date.
So you're telling this jury that we just blew you off? Is that what you're testifying to?
If that's how you care to characterize it, yes.
Okay. You can't tell us when that was?
No, I'm sure the prosecution could tell you what day we had that meeting when they told me you were going to be there.
But as you sit here, you can't tell us what date?
No,
You can tell us the month?
it was probably January.
Okay. Where was this meeting supposed to take place?
Here.
Oh, okay. Was that while we were here for jury selection?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Now, you told us on redirect examination that you had one meeting with me and my colleagues, Mr. Rankin and Mr. Fee, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that meeting lasted less than 15 minutes, right?
By my estimation, yes.
Okay. And you understood, did you not, sir, that the purpose of that meeting was for you to show us the Glock pistol that you were going to display in court?
Correct.
Yeah. And you did that, right?
Yes.
You opened up your case and you showed us the pistol, right?
Yes.
Okay. We didn't ask you anything about your opinions, did we?
No.
You weren't there to prepare your testimony with us, were you?
I don't know that I can answer that.
Well, you're a prosecution witness, right, sir?
Correct.
You prepared your testimony with them, right?
Correct.
Now, recall your testimony on redirect examination about shell casings.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Bonberg showed you some shell casings, right?
Yes, he did.
So if you bear with me, I'm going to put Exhibit 60 and Exhibit 61 right next to each other on the monitor. Okay? Here's Exhibit 60. Get these lined up, please. Sorry. Okay. Those are two shell casings, right?
Correct.
60 and 61.
Yes.
Okay. Now, am I correct, sir, that when a semi-automatic pistol fires, there's a recoil, right?
Yes,
Okay. And when the weapon recoils, the barrel drops or cams down.
correct.
Okay. And when that happens, the primer, let me get a pen. Okay. In the middle of the shell casing, this part, the silver part, that's the primer, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So when the barrel, when the barrel cams down upon recoil, the primer is sheared, right? Shear marks are left on the primer, called primer shear marks, right?
That's beyond my scope of
Okay.
knowledge.
You don't know that. Okay. So, well, you told us before on redirect examination, you were talking about the tracing of casings. Remember that testimony?
Yes,
Okay. And am I correct that, if you know, that when casings are traced, they're traced based on comparing these primer shear marks? If you know.
no, I don't know that.
Okay. But in any event, based on your general knowledge as a police officer, you know that casings from a semi-automatic pistol are frequently compared, and an effort is made by law enforcement to trace them, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, testified that the GMB barrel is law enforcement only, right?
I object. I didn't ask any questions about this area.
That's the GMB barrel, Your Honor.
Objections overruled.
Is that correct, sir?
Could you repeat the question?
Well, I'm sorry. With the exception of the 380 that you told us about, the GMB barrel is law enforcement only, right?
It's a law enforcement item.
It's law enforcement what?
It's a law enforcement only item.
Law enforcement only item. Okay. So a limited number have been made and distributed by Glock for law enforcement, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you told us that each gun sold by Glock has a unique serial number. You told us about that on redirect, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you also told us that there are 2 discharge casings in every box containing a new Glock, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Bomberg showed you that box, right?
Yes, it's here.
Okay. I'll try to there. Okay. Can you open that box, please? I'm sorry, what is it marked, just for the record? What's the label on there?
Looks like NN,
And then for identification?
yes.
Okay. So if you open that again, Mr. Bomberg asked you about a little envelope in there with 2 casings in it, right?
Yep.
Okay, can you look on that envelope, please, and tell us if there's a serial number on that envelope that corresponds to the number of the serial number of the firearm sold by Glock?
I don't know, get me the firearm and I'll tell you if this corresponds.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bomberg objected.
Overruled.
I didn't hear your answer, sir.
You've got an envelope here with a serial number on it. If you
Yes.
want me to make the comparison to the firearm, you need to get me the firearm.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question, sir. You've seen a lot of new Glocks, right?
Yep.
Okay. They're sold with an envelope in it, you told us, with 2 discharge casings in it, right?
Correct.
Okay. You know, as a Glock sales manager, do you not, that that envelope has on it the serial number that corresponds to the number of the gun in the box?
I object. Can I?
Overruled, if you know the general policy and practice of Glock, you may respond.
Yes, the serial number on the envelope with the fired shell casings should correspond with the pistol that is in the box when it is shipped.
Okay. Now, you told us on redirect examination that based on the paperwork that Glock maintains, that it would be impossible to trace casings back to a particular Glock, a particular weapon sold by Glock, right?
I object, that's not what he said.
Overruled.
It's not impossible, but there's no record that ties the shell casings to the pistol.
Okay. But you told us that there are very few of these .45 caliber GMB law enforcement only pistols in circulation, right?
Right.
Okay. So would you agree with me, sir, that if a .45 GMB barrel appears to have been used in a shooting based on distinctive markings on the projectile, that an inquiry could be made about what .45 GMB barrels have been sold to law enforcement?
I object, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Could I be seen, Your Honor?
Man.
That's probably my question again for a while. My question, sir, was if a .45 caliber Glock marking barrel appear to have been used in a shooting based on distinctive markings on projectiles, couldn't an inquiry be made of Glock as to Glock marking barrel 45s sold to law enforcement agencies?
Yes.
And if such an inquiry were made, and if those 45 caliber GMB weapons that have been sold to law enforcement were identified, then those discharge casings in those boxes that accompanied those weapons could be examined, right?
Well, if they had them, yeah.
Well, whoever bought the weapon gets the 2 discharge casings in a little envelope, right?
Right.
Okay. And if those casings were compared to the casings found at the scene, perhaps the weapon used in the shooting could be identified. Isn't that fair?
I object to the question. Perhaps?
Objection is sustained.
Well,
Wait. Witnesses are not being asked to speculate.
I don't want you to speculate, sir. As a police officer, former police officer, wouldn't such an inquiry of Glock in those circumstances be a prudent thing to do?
I object.
Objection sustained. It's prudent.
Did you testify in redirect examination, sir, about markings made on projectiles?
Yes.
You're familiar with markings made on projectiles?
Yes.
Let me put these exhibits away in the right envelope. Let me show you Exhibit 218.
I've seen the exhibit.
Exhibit 218. You told us you're familiar with striations or markings on projectiles, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, does that look like the striations or markings, distinctive markings on 2 projectiles that very clearly match?
That's beyond my area of expertise to comment on that. I can tell you that those look like striations that you would find on a bullet, but to sit here and say that those match, I can't do that.
Fair enough. Now, remember you were asking questions on redirect about full-size, large frame Glock 45s.
Yes.
Okay. But Glock makes full-size, large frame pistols in calibers other than 45, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, I think you told us, maybe it was yesterday, that the Model 20, which is a 10 millimeter weapon, uses the same frame.
It does.
As the Glock 21, which
It
is a
does.
45 caliber. Okay. And there are others as well.
No, in the large frame, There's the 41 and 45 ACP, the 21 and 45 ACP, but in terms of other calibers,
Yeah.
10 millimeter is going to be
Okay.
the only other caliber.
Okay. What about the Model 22? That's a 40 caliber?
We consider that the standard frame gun, and yes, that is a 40 caliber.
Okay. Have a moment, Your Honor. Sir, you were showing some video and some still photographs on redirect examination, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is one of the photographs from Exhibit 339. That's one of the photographs you were shown on redirect?
Yes, but the quality is not as good in this photo as what I was showing on redirect.
Okay. But the time, the screen time on this one, oops. The screen time is 15:34:09, is that right? You see that?
Yes.
All right. And like you testified earlier, that in this photograph, that appears to be Mr. Hernandez holding some object that's lit?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Osek, can I trouble you to play the video starting at screen time 15:34:09, frame by frame, please? Can you go to 15:34:09, please? Whoops. Thank you. Okay, frame by frame, please. All right, can you stop it there? Okay. So would you agree with me that Mr. Hernandez has something in his hand that's glowing at 15:34:09?
Yes.
Okay, please continue, Mr. Rousseau. Oh, okay, stop it, please. And that's 15:34:13, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now he has, and that's 4 seconds later, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now he has something in his hand which, in your opinion, is a gun, right?
No, I never rendered that opinion, sir, about
Oh.
that shot.
Okay. Well, do you have an opinion of what he has in his hand there?
It's a black rectangular object.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
And I'm sorry, could you just back that up? It's fair to say, jumps from 3:29:52 to 3:29:55, 3 seconds between that last frame and this, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sultan is asking you about this Glock marking barrel. Can you tell us, sir, this Glock marking barrel, I think you indicated on cross-examination, none have been sold in .45 caliber in New England states, is that correct?
With my tenure with the company, and the Glock marking barrel was only introduced after I started with the company, and in my tenure with the company, I've had no requests by any law enforcement agency in New England for a GMB.
And so if you could tell us, please, sir, when was the Glock marking barrel in caliber .45 introduced?
The process was in its formation sometime in 2013. And they have the ability to make them in several different calibers.
Right. And so the process would allow a police department to order it in 9mm, 40, 380, 45, correct?
Yes.
And were they all introduced in that availability at or about the same time?
Yes, the process was, yes.
Okay. And when approximately in 2013 was that?
Would have been, well, I was first advised of the new process, would have been August 2013.
And it's fair to say that they're only sold to law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
And they have to be ordered in quantities of 100, correct?
Yes, and we're talking not just the barrel, that's an entire firearm.
Meaning you don't sell the Glock marking barrels as separate parts to anybody who wants to put it back into a Glock 45 caliber.
No, we don't.
So you have to buy the entire firearm, is that correct?
Correct.
How much is a Glock 45 with a Glock marking barrel, please?
Well, to a law enforcement agency, the pistol would cost $474, and there is a upcharge for the marking barrel of, I believe, $50.
Okay, so in excess of $500 to a police department, correct?
Correct.
First available, as far as you know, in August of 2013, correct?
Thereabouts, yes.
And in your experience, about how long do police departments maintain their uniform firearms?
In New England, it's about 7 to 10 years before
Okay.
they change them out.
And what about anywhere else?
It varies. I've had departments here in Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire that they've had their Glock firearms for 20 years. So I've seen anywhere from 5 years to 20 years.
It's obviously expensive to buy 100 quantity of a particular firearm, true?
Yes, and there's also the ancillary equipment of holsters and magazine pouches, which add to the expense.
You'd have to change over if you didn't have a Glock 45 prior to that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you'd agree with me, sir, it'd be impossible to fire a weapon that didn't exist in June of 2013, true?
True.
Nothing further.
Sir, you don't know exactly when the Glock marking barrel became available, do you?
No, I was first advised of the new processes to do that in August 2013.
But you don't know when it first became available, do you?
Not exactly, no.
Thank you, sir.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Alexis Eon, please, Your Honor.
Please follow me. Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give to this court, this jury, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Have a seat, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nancy. Please state your full name.
My name is Alexis Eon. First name is Alexis. Last name is 3 letters EON.
And are you employed, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
And could you tell us where do you work?
Verizon Wireless.
And could you describe first, please, What is your current duty and responsibility with Verizon Wireless?
Currently, I am keeper of the records for Verizon Wireless.
And where is your office located?
My office is located in Wilmington, Massachusetts.
And in addition to, well, let me ask it to you this way. How long have you been working for Verizon Wireless?
I've worked for Verizon Wireless 21 years.
And in the 21 years that you've worked for Verizon Wireless, could you describe for us, please, the types of duties and responsibilities that you've had?
Certainly, I started at Verizon Wireless as a customer service representative, worked my way up the ladder, became a supervisor of the call center, then manager of a call center, and then most recently, well, within the last 13 years, I've been in executive relations.
And the types of things, in addition to being the keeper of records, that you do in executive relations, please?
I answer complaints from the FCC, the Attorney General's Office, the Better Business Bureau. I also handle any small claims actions that are filed against Verizon Wireless for the New England area.
And have you previously appeared in courts to testify as to the records of Verizon Wireless?
Yes, I have.
And about how many times would you say you've done that?
Hundreds. I do about 25 to 30 cases a year.
And in the course of your duties, are you familiar with the record keeping and the records of Verizon Wireless?
Yes, I am.
And was Verizon Wireless asked to produce particular records relating to some cell phone numbers, subscriber information, and cell site locations for 2 particular telephone numbers?
Yes.
If I may, Your Honor. I apologize for the small print, but that is the format of the record, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Do you recognize the record that I have just handed to you?
Yes.
Could you tell us what appears in that record?
This is a subscriber record.
And what particular subscriber record is it?
It is for mobile number 860-462-0951. And actually, the subscriber is actually a phone in the box, which would mean it was a prepaid phone.
Okay. Is this a record that is made at or about the time the information is obtained by Verizon Wireless?
Yes.
And is it relied on in the course of Verizon Wireless business, kept and maintained in good faith?
Yes.
I'm going to offer this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection.
Next exhibit.
$342.
Now, I'm just displaying exhibit number 342 on the overhead monitor. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you see the cell phone number that is listed there?
Yes.
And I'm just going to show you at the same time Exhibit 158, a BlackBerry cell phone. That number in 342 is listed there on the search value, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And could you tell us what the cell phone number is, please?
860-462-0951.
Now, looking at the contact information from Exhibit 158, you see that
Yes,
same number, correct?
yes, it is.
And in addition to the cell phone number there, you indicated that it was, the subscriber was a phone in the box, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what is phone in the box, please?
Okay, phone in the box is a prepay option offered to Verizon Wireless customers. So they can go into a store and literally buy the phone and it's in a box. Once they purchase the phone, they have to set up a prepaid account, either using a credit card, and put money into the account, the prepaid account. As they make calls on the phone, the money on the prepay account is deducted. And once the money is depleted, they need to replenish it with additional monies in order to continue making calls.
And where are those types of phones in the box sold, please?
They're sold in Verizon Wireless stores and our agents.
And for the purposes of phone in the box, who else besides Verizon Wireless sells phones in the box?
Best Buy, Walmart, Radio Shack, Wireless Zone. I'm just trying to think of some of our agent names.
And when a person buys a phone in the box, do they have to register their personal information?
No, personal information is not required because there's no billing.
No billing to the person who holds the phone, correct?
That's exactly right.
And in fact, here as we move across exhibit number 342, phone in the box is listed as the last name, correct?
That's correct.
First name is OAS, what does that mean?
That's just initials we put in to just fill the space.
And the address, do you recognize that address?
Yeah, that's a Verizon Wireless address.
And when you say Verizon Wireless, what do you mean by that?
That's one of our buildings in Warren, New Jersey, 30 Independence Boulevard.
In New Jersey, that's it.
It's not even a complete zip code.
Yeah. So that's just a Verizon Wireless company building, is that correct?
Right, it's just filler so we can fill in the record because we don't have all the information.
Now, in addition to the subscriber information of that telephone number, were you asked to bring records related to that phone's usage?
Yes, that's correct.
If I could, just again, dealing with Exhibit 352, or 342, I'm sorry, as we move across. Do you see those three columns, MTN, MTN effective date, and disconnect date? Do you see those?
Yes.
And could you describe what information appears in those three columns?
Well, the mobile phone number, which is 860-462-0951. And then the effective date would have been the date that this particular record started and this particular phone started was 6/15/2013. And then the disconnect date is the date that the phone was disconnected, and that's 6/18/2013.
And when you say this particular phone, this number, 860-462-0951, had it been in use by Verizon, well, let me strike that. Does Verizon Wireless own that number?
Yes,
And do you recycle the numbers that you own periodically after they've been disconnected, a period of time, allow them to be assigned to a new phone?
yes, we do.
And so this particular record, 0951, does it show that this phone in the box assigned to that particular phone number began its effective use on June 15th of 2013?
Yes,
And it was then disconnected on June 18th of 2013? Is that
that's correct.
And were you asked to produce the call records along with cell site locations for each call transaction, as well as text message records for that particular phone number during the period of time, June 15th to June 18th of 2013, 860-462-0951?
Yes,
And I'm showing you these records. Do you recognize what's depicted in those records?
yes, I do.
What's depicted in those records?
This record is text messages, incoming and outgoing text messages from, looks like June 15th to June 18th. And this is incoming and outgoing call detail record, which also includes cell tower information.
Cell site location for each of those transactions, is that correct?
Yes,
And are those records made at or about the time the transactions occur?
yes, the records are made in real time.
And are they relied on in the course of Verizon Wireless's business?
Yes,
And are they maintained and kept in good faith for that purpose?
yes.
I'm going to offer these as the next exhibit, please, John.
No objection.
Move on to the next exhibit.
Just showing you now exhibit number 343, the call data record along with cell locations. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And could you just orient us to the information that's in the record, please?
Okay, the record shows the switch, the mobile phone number for which the records were subpoenaed for, the number dialed by what we would call the target number, which is the number that the records were subpoenaed for. The call direction indicates incoming or outgoing. 3 is incoming, 6 is outgoing, and F would be a voicemail deposit. It shows the date and time of the call, and the time is in military time. It shows the duration of the call, which is in seconds. This particular record has the first serving cell site, which is the cell site that was being used when the call began. It has the first serving cell face, which is the side of the tower or the face of the tower that was being used when the call began. The last serving cell face is it's the last serving cell site, which is the cell site that was being used when the call ended. And the last serving cell face that's the face that was being used when the call ended. And the last column is the calling party number, and that indicates any incoming calls into the target number.
Now, that very first line there indicates a seizure date and time of April 16th of 2013 at 3:27 p.m. in 24 or regular time, correct?
Yes,
And is that an artifact from a prior embodiment of this number 0951?
yes it is.
Now, With respect to the Verizon records, these network element names, describe that for us, please.
Well, that's the switch. So the switch is the transfer area. So the switch handles the calls incoming and outgoing. So
And in the Verizon records, those switches are given names, is that correct?
yes,
And do those names that they're given actually correspond to some geographical areas?
yes,
And does a switch only serve cell site or cell activity within its geographical area?
yes,
Meaning, just taking that first network element name or the switch there, it indicates Windsor 2. Is that
yes.
correct?
Yes, it does.
And are you familiar with the switch Windsor 2?
Yes.
And where, or what geographical area is Windsor 2 a switch for, please?
Windsor 2 is located in Connecticut.
And so is it fair to say that
Please no talking. Thank you. You may proceed.
if Windsor 2, just looking at the record, if Windsor 2 appears there, we would know that the call, your phone number 0951, was at least within the state of Connecticut, looking at that, just that very first bit of information.
Yes, they were picking up a tower that would use the Windsor switch, yes.
And were you asked to provide certain locations for cell sites, the records of Verizon Wireless as well, cell site locations?
Yes, the addresses of the cell sites, yes.
I may approach the witness room. Show you these records. Do you recognize what appears in those records?
Yes, this is a listing of cell site locations by number and their addresses, along with the latitude and longitude of each one.
And again, do you recognize these as the official records of Verizon Wireless?
Yes,
And are they relied on in the course of Verizon Wireless's business and maintained in good faith for that purpose?
yes.
I'm going to offer this as the next exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
And marked as the next exhibit.
$344.
Now, with respect to Exhibit 344, could you just orient us to what is shown in these records, please?
Certainly. The market SID is the system ID, so each market has an ID, and that would be 28 in this case. The next one is the switch number. While most of the time we do use names for our switches, they still are numbered, and that would indicate the number for that particular switch. The switch name is Taunton in this case. The cell number, that would indicate the number of the cell tower that had been used. Then we have longitude and latitude of the cell tower location. Then after that is the street location, and the city and the state and the zip code. Then we have some other information about the sector of the tower and the kind of technology, whether it's analog or digital. Nowadays it's going to be all digital. And then the azimuth, antenna, direction, and a lot of other information that really is more pertinent to Verizon Wireless than these proceedings. A lot of this it's all engineering information. And then the last one is whether it's CDMA or EVDO, what generation it is of data input.
In fact, your engineers are the ones that are relying on this, correct?
Yes,
They have to be able to go and locate the towers on occasions.
exactly right.
This particular switch name is Taunton, is that correct?
Yes,
And geographical area of Taunton is laid out here in these cities, is that true?
yes,
Includes some cities and towns in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts as well. is that
yes.
In addition to the records for 0951, were you asked to produce records for a cellular telephone 860-491-5275?
Yes,
Show you that record. Do you recognize that record?
yes, that's another subscriber record.
And could you tell us what appears in that particular subscriber record?
The subscriber record is for mobile number 860-491-5275. It's also a phone in the box, which indicates it's also a prepaid phone.
And could you tell us, please, the beginning date of the use of the phone in the box?
Now, the setup date for this particular period with this phone number was June 21st, 2013 to December 22nd, 2013.
And were you summoned to bring the records of the calls and the texts of that particular phone?
Yes.
I'm going to show you these two items. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is a text message detail, incoming and outgoing calls, and this is a call detail record. Yes, it's both my records.
Are all of these records the records of Verizon Wireless?
Yes,
And are they made at or about the time of the occurrences that are described herein?
yes, they're made in real time.
And are they relied on for the purposes of the business and maintained in good faith?
Yes.
I'm going to offer these as the next two exhibits, please. No objection, Your Honor.
They may be marked as the next exhibits.
Showing you now Exhibit 345. Recognize that?
Yes.
And could you describe, please, just the search value? That's the telephone number, is that correct?
Yes, that's the telephone number, and then an account number, and then the phone, the name says phone in the box, and the first name is OAS, just filler. The address is 30 Independence Boulevard, Warren, New Jersey.
And when you say there's an account number, does that account come back to anything other than phone in the box?
No, that's just an account number we send up. Actually, all the prepaid phones, in certain periods of time, will have the same account number.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 346. Do you see that?
Yes?
And again, it has the same information as we proceed across the top as the last record. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that dial digit number, star 611, do you know what that is?
Yeah, that's a call into customer service?
And when someone gets a phone in the box, do they do something, or?
Yeah, they would call into customer service to activate it.
And that shows that the switch that was used for that purpose on June 21st at 9:41 p.m. was located in Connecticut, is that correct?
Yes.
And as you move down now to June 22nd, do you see that?
Yes.
And does that indicate a different switch?
Yes, that's a switch located in Roanoke, Virginia.
And as you continue to move down the record, does that indicate something further?
Yeah, yes, it goes into Charlotte.
And that's where, please?
North Carolina?
And then you see there that there's Wallingford shows up after that third Charlotte, is that correct?
Yes.
And the call direction there is a forward, is that true?
Yes.
And does that indicate something in relationship to those Charlottes that are there located, and then you have a Wallingford, that's in Connecticut, is that correct?
Right.
And it's fair to say the phone could be in the same, two different places at the same time, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so how does that appear on the record?
The call direction F indicates a voicemail deposit to this phone, the 5275 number. The 860 makes it a Connecticut number. So based on this record and the information there, that number, 860-491-5275, is homed off the Wallingford switch. When they're away from their home area, which in this case this phone is, if a voicemail comes in, the voicemail will be deposited in their home switch. And that's why it says Wallingford.
Now, as we continue to move down the record, you see it again then change after that last Charlotte there, located
Goes to Greenville,
where's Greenville?
Greenville, North Carolina.
And then the next indication is Wallingford with a 5 next to it, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you explain that entry for us, please?
The 5 is an indication that we're trying to route the number, and we would route it through the home switch, because again, the phone is not in its home area. So a lot of times, we need to route a call to an area that's not their home area, and to do that, we use a routing number, and their numbers specific to routing. They aren't valid phone numbers, but they're numbers that we use to get the call to our customers.
And then after that, Wallingford, the next switch used is Alpharetta, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know where that is?
Georgia?
And then after that, there are appearances of a switch in Macon, is that correct?
Yes.
And where's that located?
That's also Georgia.
Go to the next page. So we again see Macon and Wallingford, is that correct?
Yes.
And that the appearance of Wallingford in these, that's consistent with what you previously described.
Yes.
Go to the next page. Again, same, correct?
Yes.
Wallingford appearance, same as you've described.
Yes.
Page 4. From the top all the way down, same, is that correct?
It's all Macon, yes.
And to the extent that there's Wallingford, that's also related as you've described it, is that correct?
Yes.
Go to page 5, you see that?
Yes.
Again, down till we get to this last Macon followed by a Wallingford, do you see that?
Yes.
That's consistent as you described it, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the next switch there, do you see that?
Orlando,
And where's that located?
Florida,
And then after that,
Jupiter, Florida.
Page 6,
Is Jupiter and then Miami, Florida.
and then to the extent that Wallingford appears, that's also consistent with either routing or forwarding, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then page 7, the last page,
That's all, that's Miami, Florida.
and then
And then Wallingford.
in it, those last two calls there, one's a 5, that's routed, correct?
Yes,
And the other one is forward, is that true?
yes,
And so the last activity on the phone, June 28th in Miami, is that correct?
yes.
I just have a little. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I'm showing you Exhibit 342, which is the, what would you call this, the subscriber information?
Yes, subscriber record, yes.
And you say the account number doesn't have any significance to your records?
Well, the significance that it's had, normally, when you set up an account, if it's a post-pay account, an account number would be significant to the number, but this is a post-pay account, so we don't set up new account numbers for every prepay customer that we get, so we have a general number. Sometimes the numbers are different, and we'll put so many on there, but there'll be a general number for a while that will keep that number for a while, and then we'll get so many numbers attached to it, and then we'll start a new number, just to have an account number there, because that's the way our system is set up.
So if I go into, a Verizon wireless store and I buy a phone in the box and set up an account, and then 6 months later I do the same thing, I'm not going to have the same account number.
Probably not, no.
Now, when I buy a phone in the box, I have to get it activated in some way.
Yes,
So on the other record, I think you said that there was a star 611 call for that second phone number you were asking about. Remember that?
yes.
And so that's indicating that somebody called customer service and set up the account in that fashion.
Well, I'm not sure what that call was for. All I can tell you is they dialed star 611. Because it's in the beginning of the record when the phone was first purchased, it would indicate that, yes, maybe they called into customer service to activate the phone.
Okay. Is another way to activate the phone in the store,
The store could help you activate the phone, yes.
which would obviate the need for a star 611?
That's correct.
So that might explain the difference between these two records.
Yes.
And if I call up 611 and say I bought a new phone in the box and I want to load money, that I would have to do that to use the phone, is that right?
That's exactly right.
And I'd have to give you a credit card? Or
Yes.
And a credit card with a name on the credit card
Yes,
and the security code and an expiration date?
yes.
Does Verizon keep that information?
No, we would only keep it for as long as the prepaid phone was active. Because if a customer wanted to call in, well, it would depend. Some prepaid customers set it up as a recurring payment so that it gets paid every month, so that so they can always keep on making calls. Other customers may just give us the credit card number and not allow us to maintain it. If they don't allow us to maintain it, then we wouldn't keep that information.
So you would just charge it, and once the charge went through, you wouldn't have a file and be able to look up?
That's right, we would not maintain it in our system to look it up.
so that if I wanted to know what credit card was used to look at either of these phones, unless the customer said, you keep my information, you wouldn't keep it.
That's right.
And you would, you know, if I go back to my earlier scenario, if I bought a phone today and then another one 6 months from now, you wouldn't necessarily link those two phones.
No.
In any way. It wouldn't be an account number that would show the same person had those phones.
No, unless they were the same phone number, but there would be nothing, no, because we don't ask for any information when it's a prepaid phone because we're not billing it. So we don't need any ID from the customer.
Okay. And the same would be true if you used your credit card in the Verizon wireless store. There would be no way, Verizon wouldn't keep that the financial information unless the customer, it's late in the day, unless the customer set up a recurring charge.
That's right.
Okay. Now, in the, let me just show you Exhibit 346, there's this long column with call direction, and there are various abbreviations there.
Yes.
Does Verizon have a printout that is furnished in response to a subpoena that gives an explanation of what those 1 and F and 0 and 5 mean?
Actually, there is a legend that explains what it is, but I can tell you if you'd like.
Well, you don't have that legend with you?
No.
Is that typically provided
Yes.
in response to
Yes.
subpoenas?
Some of them, what'll happen is they'll usually tell you, the legend will tell you 1, 0, 6, and 3, and then they'll say all the other numbers are Verizon Wireless internal coding. That really, because they are not actual calls. Like I said, one of them was actually, just shows the routing, but we're just gathering all the data so everything's there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And just to the extent, could you just give us code number, legend, just very quickly, if you don't mind?
Sure, 0 and 6 are outgoing calls, 1 and 3 incoming calls, and F is voicemail deposits.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Today, let me just tell you a little bit about next week's schedule for your planning. Tomorrow we will be stopping as in the normal course at 1 on Friday. Next week there will not be a session on Monday. I don't anticipate that. It's conceivable between now and tomorrow at 1 things change, but I do not anticipate we will have a schedule at all on Monday, which means we'll go a full day on Wednesday. So next week, based on what I now know, there'll be no schedule on Monday. We'll go a full day on Wednesday, and we'll stop at 1 on Friday. Please continue to avoid anything about the case or Mr. Hernandez that may appear in a newspaper or radio or television or a magazine or any other form of media and social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, or anywhere else. Please continue to avoid speaking, emailing, texting, or any other fashion communicating in any manner about this case or Mr. Hernandez. And if anyone starts communicating with you in any way about this case or your jury service, Mr. Hernandez, please end the communication immediately. Please do not do any research about this case or Mr. Hernandez or anything you think could in any way be relevant to the case. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
He. All persons having anything further to do before the Honorable, the Justice E. Susan Gosh of the Superior Court, now sitting at Fall River within and for the Commonwealth, depart and give your attendance here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., to which time and place the sitting of this court is now adjourned. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Court is now adjourned.